It's Friday, March 6, 2020. Digital Trends Live is about to start. Here are some of the topics we'll be covering on today's episode of the show. As we all adapt to the coronavirus world that we now live in, businesses are also changing the way they operate. We'll let you know some of the latest developments that could be headed your way. And the Royby robot was named by Time magazine as one of the best inventions of 2019. We'll be joined by Elnaz Saraf to discuss how it's making education more accessible for children worldwide. And from Berklee College of Music, we'll be joined by Susan Rogers, who has a doctoral degree in experimental psychology, to talk about the convergence of music and advanced studies of the brain. And our long-running segment of Between the Streams returns to the airwaves today when Rick Marshall joins us to catch you up on some of the biggest stories in entertainment, including a first look at the new Batmobile and details of a fight that James Bond may actually be losing. All of this and more on today's episode of Digital Trends Live. Hello there, it is Friday. This is Digital Trends Live. Thanks for joining us wherever you are. We do appreciate it. Of course, hit that subscribe button. We broadcast live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and so much more. All while broadcasting live across a number of different platforms. We're on Periscope, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Dailymotion, Apple News, 2 different mobile apps, a smart television app, and at digitaltrends.com/live. So wherever you're watching, you can join in the conversations that we get to have. And let's get those started right now. I'm Greg Nibbler, here with Nicole Rainey. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
A lot to talk about, as usual, and there's no avoiding it. I'm just going to say this. We'll be talking about coronavirus forever, so that's just part of what all of our lives are right now. And today, though, there's a couple of other developments that have kind of happened, and it's just the changing way that businesses are adapting to it.
I'm actually really fascinated about this because, like you said before, it's kind of the life that we live right now, and so I think that this is going to be the area that we're going to be most affected by. Mm-hmm. So I'm really curious about, maybe how some of you guys' businesses are adapting or trying to prepare for the possibility of having to work home or work from home or something along those lines.
Yeah, there's a lot of businesses that are instituting that to where it's encouraging people to work from home, especially I know King County in Seattle, they've kind of got an order for there, and I think LA does as well. But then you're also seeing some other things. So just a couple of different examples of some different changes that are happening. Apple right now is rejecting coronavirus apps that aren't from health organizations. So naturally, anytime there's a crisis, somebody's going to try to take advantage of it. And these are companies that are putting out apps with coronavirus in it that aren't health related or possibly even if it's not malicious, but information that's not correct. And so now they're saying that the information that has to be on there has to be has to originate from a health organization.
So something like CDC, something like the World Health Organization, an institution that is already well recognized, they'll allow their apps to be on the app stores. But if you're maybe like a private organization, even if you're regurgitating the same information, your app is going to be rejected just to help reduce the chances of misinformation.
And there's so much misinformation that's out there right now. I mean, that's one of the huge problems.
But if you search on the app stores right now, you're not really seeing a lot of spam or unrecognizable names. So that's at least comforting in that respect.
Which is good because you see that with Google and Facebook as well. They make sure that either the World Health Organization or CDC pops up right away when people are searching for it. And that's all to try to stem all that misinformation that's out there. Twitter, there's a lot of it on there. Let's just say that. There's a lot of misinformation on Twitter. But at least these major companies are trying to get a hold of that. And maybe that's kind of a sign of what could happen going forward, because this is the first time I feel like we've faced something quite like this. I mean, certainly there's been pandemics before, but with all of the technology that we have right now, which naturally it's constantly evolving, now we have a little bit more control over it. So it's interesting to see how the companies are handling it, and would they do the same thing going forward for something along these lines.
But speaking of technology, we do live in a world where that technology can also aid us in limiting our physical interaction. Although this topic may seem a little bit morbid in the context of the coronavirus, the National Association of Funeral Directors, which is in the United Kingdom, they're looking to see how we could possibly live stream funerals to reduce interaction amongst individuals. So not necessarily exposing people to somebody who's passed away from the coronavirus, but just kind of like the way that some sporting organizations are looking at not allowing fans to attend events. It's kind of like not requiring people to be there in person. And so they're looking at maybe live streaming funeral services and setting up the tech to allow for that, which I think is again, it's kind of a morbid topic, but it's really fascinating.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's a conversation that needs to be had, too.
And it's a great example of a business or like a sector looking at how tech can aid with that. And I think in a lot of cases, they're kind of ahead of the curve with trying to make sure that we can already keep these interactions up without having to physically be there in person.
Right, and you're seeing that with all kinds of different things, with conventions, with business meetings, and I mean, stock I think in Zoom is way up, or think companies like that, Zoom and Skype and different ways to interact. But talking about live streaming, I mean, certainly that's a way that you can connect to people, which again, we here at Digital Trends Live appreciate everybody who watches our live stream. But this is something that
we're already prepared.
We're already prepared. Yeah, we're on top of it right here. So there's though looking at that, there are a lot of different companies that are trying to figure that out, and funerals being one of the other things, because it's the public gatherings where you worry about all of this kind of spreading, and that's where you have the issues. So as we all start to think about how do you work from home or how do you telecommute, this is a really, really rapidly changing industry where everybody's finally taking a look at this and trying to change it up. And going from the funerals, there is one other one, and this is kind of a tech trend as well. We all probably at some point have ordered something online to have it delivered, whether it's Amazon or Uber Eats or anything along those lines. Now there is one of the companies, which is Instacart, has instituted already in China, and now it's going other places, a policy where you can actually select no human interaction with your delivery. So they'll deliver it, and then you'll get a text, but they'll walk away. They'll get away, and so that way you can pick up your groceries and have zero interaction with humans.
So this is great for the customer, I think, because basically you don't have to be in the store. You don't have to even come face to face with the person who's delivering your groceries. But I feel like this is a step in the right direction. But I feel like the group that's going to be hit the most if this becomes more of a pandemic will be the people who are actually doing the deliveries.
Yeah.
So I'd be more interested to see what Instacart and similar services are doing to help protect some of the people who work for the app, not just use the app to get deliveries.
Right. I mean, that's certainly probably I would think a pay bump would be in order. Maybe it's going to cost more to get deliveries if this were to go, fully to that. And again, this isn't to cause panic about anything, but just looking at it that way, this is something that in China they've really taken hold of to try to keep that interaction between people to keep it from spreading. But this is just one more thing. Then you have to think about how is Uber going to react? How is Lyft going to react?
Yeah.
Actually taking rides. Will ride sharing take a hit?
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's not about starting panic. It's about being prepared and limiting some of those use cases as much as we can to start with, to help limit the spread of anything. Like it's still like flu season right now, so some of these options I think are going to be great moving forward, anyways.
Yeah.
And to hopefully protect not just customers but also those workers from undue exposure.
Yeah. Once coronavirus is taken care of, once it's eradicated, you're still going to I think, have a lot of these policies carry forward in different ways, shapes, and forms. I mean, everything's changing right now. It really is, and tech is certainly involved in that. Everybody's rethinking what they're doing, how everything operates. Are conventions necessary? I believe so, but you never know. Things could certainly change a lot after this. So you can read more about it all. This is all, we have lots of stuff written up at digitaltrends.com. Of course, you can follow up there, follow up with the World Health Organization, with CDC. Keep yourself updated. Make sure you're reading correct information. And of course, go to digitaltrends.com. All right, continuing on, let's talk about something else. This is another social media-based kind of topic. It has to do with Facebook, and this is kind of a symbol of what we can see going forward, and it's kind of testing the boundaries of social media ahead of the big election that's going to be happening here in the U.S. later this year. And this is kind of the first thing that Facebook has done. They have actually removed some of Donald Trump's re-election campaign ads due to misinformation. So what the campaign ad was is it basically said, this survey is essential to our team's 2020 campaign strategy. We need patriotic Americans like you to respond to this census so we can develop a winning strategy for your state. And then basically they had a link that said official congressional district census. It was not.
Well, this is what's really confusing is because right now there is a very real government census occurring, right? So you might be asked to fill out questions for that census, but that census has nothing to do with a campaign census.
Yeah.
So using that term in a year when the official census is occurring can be a little misleading.
I mean, and this is, not going political on either side, but it wasn't a census. I mean, so that's, I think, looking at it from this and looking at it from a broader standpoint, because this is certainly something that all politicians post things that are misleading. And so seeing how social media handles it based on, the conundrum we were in last time with so much misinformation being posted from all kinds of different sources. I think it's interesting to see how they're handling it, because Facebook has kind of been hands off on it to some extent. And now they kind of dabble around with saying, oh, we'll do a little bit of this, but generally hands off. Twitter, on the other hand, has banned all political ads, but that's a lot of money that's out there. And so Facebook has said they'll allow them, but policing them like this is an interesting way to go about it. So taking off, this with thousands and thousands of impressions that they were trying to get off of this, or millions maybe.
And two, there's a really big distinction here as well, because Facebook has been a little bit like, well, is it really our job to police the links that are posted on our platform? And they've tried to institute technology within the system that will sort of identify whether or not that this is a trusted news site or maybe a not so trusted news site, which has not really been super successful thus far.
Yeah.
But this is an interesting precedent because this isn't actually like a paid for advertisement. So basically, Facebook is saying like, no, we're not going to run those. Like, we're not going to take that money. So I think that's I think it's going to be kind of interesting to see how this develops as we head even closer to the election.
Right. Yeah. This is going to be a constant thing that we're gonna be seeing. More and more and more money as. When these elections happen, there's a lot of money that gets invested in advertising, and certainly online media is one of the biggest places to do that. And how these social media platforms handle it will be, it'll just be interesting testing them out to see what they do, whether it's hands-on, hands-off. This one in particular, they did say it's Facebook's 2020 census rules prohibit misrepresentation of government involvement in the census. So, and it was a misrepresentation, so we'll have to see, how that shapes up going forward. But this is kind of the first one, just giving us a little bit of a sign of what's going to be happening there when it comes to that. So I think it's the start of a much larger discussion.
Yeah, and I'm curious because obviously this is really closely tied into 2020 being an election year and a census year, but I think it's going to be kind of interesting to see like how platforms like Facebook and other social medias, how they kind of, maybe continue using these kinds of things after November.
Yeah, that's true too. Another thing that going forward, how are things going to be handled? But a lot to think about right there. And you could read more about all of that at digitaltrends.com. Let's get into some gadgets. Let's talk about phones, in particular foldable phones. And another concept one that came out from TCL, actually. So TCL, in case, for a lot of us, you just kind of are finding out about TCL or just know about them in the last couple of years, they have really burst onto the scene as being a major player in a lot of different fields, in particular with televisions, but now going into this as well, going into a foldable phone device. This thing almost transitions into something else, but it's a 3-fold. So not 1 fold, you get 3 folds with this one. So that's kind of a big point with it. And we actually got some hands-on time. By me, I mean Corey Gaskin, got some hands-on time with it. And it's kind of an interesting use case because you have 3 different things that you can do with it. You can have it completely folded up where it's stacked on itself as a normal phone. You can open up one, you got kind of a wider screen, and then you can go open it up again. It's almost like a full tablet with a 10-inch display on it.
And it's interesting, too, because they also are looking at a rollable one. But as Corey notes in his hands-on sneak peek online at digitaltrends.com, he's got some questions about durability because the units that he was able to test weren't actually functioning. Like you could actually interact with them, but they weren't necessarily working. And as we've seen with previous examples, like the first Galaxy Fold, the repeated use of rolling something or having to stack something like an accordion. It might, I don't know. I just think in general, we're obviously moving towards that foldable, rollable, twistable, boppable, phones.
Bop it.
But whether or not that they can withstand the daily use that I definitely put my own personal phone through, is yet to be seen.
Yeah, and how that's all going to work out. You're taking a look here too at just some of the other examples of that. There's showcasing some different ways that you can utilize these things. Its durability is definitely going to be an issue. I don't think any of them have passed that test yet. So that one's, I think that's the rollable one actually, where it just kind of rolls out. I kind of like this idea, this concept. I think that's the best one.
A rollable one, really?
Yeah, where it actually rolls out, where it's like a like a slate.
You think maybe something more you can just open it like that?
That's what that one was. The concept of it.
Yeah, so you would actually like that the most?
Like that one.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'd like that one.
I don't know. I think call me whenever I can pack it up into a tiny cube and put it in my front pocket. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true too. I think no matter what, like none of these have actually become successful yet.
Yeah.
I mean, even, and let's be honest, there's certainly some issues with the Z Flip. I mean, it has a crease in it. Just from the second you get it, it's got a crease in the middle of it.
Yeah, and in addition to durability, they kind of have to solve for the aesthetic option too, because
Yeah.
even as Corey points out, the one that kind of like folded up like an accordion, it's like this thick.
Yeah.
Whenever it's folded up, which is, I mean, still nice. Like maybe if the other option was, having a larger tablet, and maybe you could easily put that like in your backpack.
Yeah.
But I can't really see myself walking around.
Right,
with
putting that in your pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let alone, what kind of case do you get for that? Because that's.
Oh, that's another good point. I didn't even think about that. I need my case.
Oh,
I
I
drop
do
my
too.
phone on the daily.
Oh yeah, yeah, I do as well. That's why these are not for me until they can really secure them. But you can take a look at that one at digitaltrends.com. And I know we've got a couple more things here just to get to before we come up to our break. But we do want to talk about this. SpaceX kind of doubly in the news. So the first part is later on today, they're going to be sending up another Falcon 9 rocket with cargo to resupply the International Space Station. So that's going to be launching, I think, about 8:30 p.m. Pacific tonight, and that window usually changes. If something happens, it could be pushed
Weather.
off, but weather, yeah. So that's generally when it's scheduled. I think 8:50 p.m. Pacific is when it's scheduled for right now, but we'll see if that goes. But still, another sign that they're progressing with what they're able to do with the International Space Station, so bringing up some more cargo there. But another big thing is this partnership that was announced with Axiom Space. So SpaceX already previously said that they're going to be sending people up to go into orbit for space tourism. Now they're going to be taking 4 astronauts up to private astronauts. Let's emphasize that. 3 private ones and 1 Axiom-trained mission commander, but still all private individuals, to the International Space Station to stay.
So it's really fascinating because in the similar way that NASA contracts SpaceX to help deliver goods to the International Space Station, basically Axiom, which is a private company, is contracting SpaceX to send some of its private astronauts to basically go hang out on the International Space Station.
Yeah.
This is not a science mission. This has nothing to do with anything other than fun, I guess.
Yeah. It's tourism.
Which is crazy. Like, sign me up. I want to go. I do not have the money, but.
Well, here's the thing. We don't know how much it's going to cost yet.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. The last time, it's not the first time that people will have gone up to the space station, but previously, it's around $55 million.
Oh, easy
for
money.
a stay.
Easy money.
NASA did say that they're actually, another partnership with Axiom as well, is that they're going to have a module there for tourists to come up to, and they're going to be charging $35,000 a night.
So it's interesting because, like you mentioned before, it's not the first time that private citizens have been able to hang out on the International Space Station, but this will be the first, like, totally private flight.
Yeah.
It's a private astronaut, like a private company training astronauts, a private company building the robot. Like, it's very fast.
The rocket, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to
Oh, yeah, robots. Sorry. No robots. Just rockets.
Who knows? There could be robots on there, too.
Sorry, I haven't had enough coffee this morning.
Robots and rockets, they're both awesome. But yeah, so it's just an interesting story with that. And we've got more about it at digitaltrends.com, so I encourage everybody to just kind of go there and take a look at that and let us know what is happening with that. Okay, let's go to this. Let's talk about something else that I want to bring you up to date on, and that is this. ESPN Plus is a pretty great service, and they have UFC 248, which is going to be happening tomorrow. So this is what's going to be going on with this. I want to let you know about it. It is a big fight. So it's Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero, and so it's taking place in Las Vegas, of course, at the T-Mobile Arena. So this is a championship fight. It's the UFC middleweight championship bout, and a couple of things with it that you should be aware of in case you don't know. So Israel Adesanya has a goal right now, and he has stated this, that he's going to fight probably 3 different times this year alone in order to get to a championship bout with John Jones. But to do that, he's got to go through this person tomorrow, and that's Yoel Romero, who's also a former silver medalist in the Olympics, and he's 42, so this is probably one of his last fights, but he's definitely been one of the best fighters of the last decade, so it'll be an interesting matchup, whether he can dethrone Israel Adesanya. That's going to be kind of the big thing, or is this just another stepping stone for him? Either way, it's going to be a big match, and right now, you can sign up for the ESPN Plus annual plan plus UFC 248 for $85. Pretty cool setup right there, so take a look at that and click the link that we have as well, and that way you can go there and sign up for it. Pretty great deal, and take advantage of it now.
Hey, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. It's now time for the product of the day.
All right, it's time here for You Need This. This is our product of the day. This is what we've got. So this is, it looks really small in my hands, right? This thing doesn't seem like it's very much. This is a 1 terabyte portable solid state drive. That is huge. This is from Samsung, so it's a USB 3.1 external, and a couple of key things with it and the key notes that I want to let you know about is this. So here's what it is. It's fast. It is really fast. It is 540 megabytes per second fast. So that transfer speed is huge. Like, say you have a whole bunch of big files you want to transfer. If you're working in videos, you certainly know about this. You're editing on one, you need to get to something else. 540 megabytes per second is ridiculous. And that's because it's USB 3.1 generation 2. And so the other part of this too, a couple of key issues, it's shock resistant. If you're like me, you drop it. I dropped these before. It kind of sucks with solid state. You don't really have to worry about that. That's why it's so great to have these. But you can also, it'll withstand falls up to 6.5 feet. So you should be pretty good. Unless you're trying to dunk it or something like that, then you should be pretty safe on that. It also has USB-A support for PCs, phones, and other devices. I've got an optional password protection, so even if you do misplace it, you don't have to worry about somebody getting into your data as easily. And like I said, really small. It's crazy that this is a terabyte in something this small that can transfer data that fast. I kind of want this myself. Right now it's on sale, so it's $176.99, which may seem like a lot until you take a look at what other hard drives are out there. This is actually a really good deal. So that's $75 off the normal price. So you can click the link that we have right there. That way you can take advantage of this. These things are just good to have around anyway, which is why I kind of want to just put this one in my pocket, but I know I can't do that. But this is what our deal is for the day, so definitely take a look at that. Click the link, pick up the Samsung Portable SSD T5. All right, there we go. We need to get to a break because well, not a break necessarily, because we have the deets coming up. So we've got an episode with Riley Wynn where he's talking about India and the way that their tech culture is changing and how India could be the next Silicon Valley, essentially. So that's coming up. But before we go to break, Nicole, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Always fun. And thank you to everybody who's joining us here, wherever you're watching. We have so much coming up today, a lot of great conversations to be had, a lot of tech news to be had. So stick around. We'll be back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
For big tech, there's tons of money to be made in India. The country has over 1 billion people and they're getting on the internet for the first time more than anywhere else. However, doing business in Mumbai is a little bit different than doing business in Palo Alto. American tech companies have mostly been unsuccessful in India, but recently, big tech has started to understand the nuances of the subcontinent and is starting to make some headway. The country is going to be a hotbed for tech over the next few years, and it makes us wonder, could India be the next Silicon Valley? You're watching The Deets, a show where we demystify the technologies that are shaping the future. I'm your host, Riley Wynn. India is the second most populated country on the planet. For Silicon Valley to not have success until recently is kind of surprising. It took big tech a while to realize it can't approach India the same way it approaches the US and other major markets. But now, companies have been experimenting with their premier products or launched new and exclusive ones just for India. early in 2019, Netflix added a $3 mobile-only plan in India. Out of all the internet users in the country, 75% of them do all of their browsing online from their phones. The special subscription restricts viewers to streaming shows and movies in standard quality on a single phone screen. Side note, we could totally see the mobile-only Netflix subscription becoming very popular for younger generations around the globe. Last year, Amazon also introduced its first battery-powered Echo Smart speaker. The majority of users in India rely on mobile hotspots and often suffer from power outages. So a traditional Echo device like the one you have at home doesn't make sense for them. Just about every major tech company has gone the extra mile to re-engineer its offerings for India. Take Uber, for example. Fed up with the central bank's two-step authentication policies, the rideshare launched cash payments in India. Google and Facebook offer free Wi-Fi across the country and have built feature phone versions of their main apps. Downloads on YouTube, unlike other countries, don't require a premium subscription. And Vodafone subscribers can talk to the Google Assistant through a toll-free number in Hindi or English with no internet needed. Why all of a sudden does everyone in Silicon Valley want a piece of India? Well, the answer is pretty simple. The country's data consumption, music streaming, and e-commerce is booming. By 2023, the number of internet users in India is projected to reach 750 to 800 million. That's 3 times the amount of people using the internet in the US right now. A report from McKinsey Global Institute estimates that the number of smartphone users will double in the next couple of years as both the phones themselves become cheaper and internet costs continue to drop. On top of that, it says monthly mobile data consumption is rising at a whopping 152%. That's more than twice the rates in the United States and China. India has been relatively untapped because of cultural and language barriers. 90% of India doesn't speak English, and it has 22 official languages with many more dialects. 400 million new consumers will be using the internet for the first time, and most of them will be non-English speaking. And of that 400 million, many will be coming from rural regions, but that's also where we'll see the most growth in mobile subscriptions and video streaming. Netflix and Amazon are taking notice of this and have been providing content in regional languages. Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos said, "I predict that the 21st century is going to be the Indian century. The most important alliance is going to be the alliance between India and the US, the world's oldest democracy and the world's largest democracy. India might just be the last frontier for big tech to come in and dominate. And if last year was any indication, India could become the next Silicon Valley." Until next time, I'm Riley Wynn with Digital Trends, and thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and thank you so much for joining us wherever you are. We do appreciate it, and we always like to talk about how technology is changing our lives, right? It does it all the time, and it disrupts things, and it changes things, and a lot of times makes things better. And that's what we're going to talk about right now is a really amazing invention, actually named by Time Magazine as one of the best inventions of 2019. I'm talking about the Roiby robot, and we have the founder and CEO of Roiby joining us right now. We have Elnaz Saraf. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Greg. Thank you so much for having me and Roby on the show.
There it
It's a
is, right
pleasure.
there. I want to talk about this in just some of the different ways that education is changing. But to give everybody some context, let's talk about the robot itself for a second and talk about what led you to invent this.
Absolutely. About 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to interact with parents through my first startup, which we have baby monitors. And based on all the feedback I got from the parents, and education was so personal to me, I decided to start Roiby with my team because we did not see any good tool or product on the market to really help children as young as even 3 years old. And that's why we decided to start building Roiby and to disrupt this education category. Roiby is an AI-powered educational robot for kids aged 3 to 7 in language learning and basic STEM. Comes with over 500 lessons, songs, stories. So on a daily basis, it can play many different categories, over 50 categories, 70,000 vocabularies. And we are starting with English language and adding more languages like Mandarin, Spanish as we move forward.
Wow, so all of that is kind of powered just within that it comes naturally with it when you buy it. So that's not even something that you have to update.
Yes.
It just comes with all those lessons.
Absolutely, and all the updates are over the cloud, so it is automatic. They get a robot, install it. It's very easy. It's really fun to play with it. It has different like sensors. Like this. It actually can teach children to take care of it because when they shake it or they want to drop it, it says cute things as you just heard.
So there's all kinds of different lessons they're getting in, but in addition to something, and we'll get into this too, talking about STEM lessons, but also just knowing how to care for the robot. Oh, I'm not sure if Elmas, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. So talking about the robot itself, I want to get into that just a little bit more and the design of it and some of the different functionality. I noticed that it has a camera on it. What is that actually utilized for?
So one of the problems that we see in like toy category with kids, although it's a robot, for kids it's a toy. We see that after a while, kids lose the interaction between their toys and they just totally forget about it. And we added the camera here for facial detection. So when it sees the child, it initiates friendly conversation to say hello and grabs their attention. And also, we have a unique use of technology. We use emotion detection to understand what the child is feeling during the lessons. And that's how we can also personalize the lessons to know if they're excited or not, and if the lessons are working for them. But it also comes with a privacy cover because we know privacy is a very important matter these days. And parents has always have the control and choice to turn this on and off or put the cover. It's a very, very small cover that it goes on the camera, but it also continues the interaction with the children when it sees them.
Wow. Looking at it, you brought up the fact that it's disrupting the education system and changing things. So talking about it as a disruption, is this something that you see as replacing standard education or augmenting it, or where does it fall along in those lines?
To tell you the vision, we actually envision Roiby to become a platform to connect learners, educators, parents all together. And this is how we can disrupt the education category because right now it's mainly one size fits all. All children are learning pretty much the same way in the classroom setting. We are not saying we are going to replace that. We are going to actually enhance it and to give another tool to even educators to help them to add their content. Every child can have one robot for themselves. They can take it home, they can bring it back to the school and actually create a very interactive experience. And because it has a reporting system, it has AI, it can continuously analyze what the child is doing and it can give feedback to the educators as well. And what we eventually want to do is to change this industry, but truly focusing on every child's ability and interest. And basically saying every child has unique skills, and we have to utilize AI to understand that better.
So it's really customizing it in addition to everything else, like giving that child like that individual attention and customization as well. With you mentioned with the facial recognition, being able to understand their emotions and learning over time. That's a pretty incredible use. What I guess talking about the technology side of it, I mean, are you able to update these as you go through? Is it able to take updates and get new lessons?
Absolutely. So right now, Roiby comes with a set of lessons. There is a path they follow on a daily basis, but eventually we are working on tools and abilities to actually give to educators and even parents to add their own content, make it a little bit even fun and engaging, and again, personalized, because at some point, even parents know the child better. They can add certain content or even reschedule, modify some of our content to even help us to make it more personalized. So we are gradually giving them that control, and that creates really the community and everybody being involved within the education of the child.
Talking about the actual design of it and the structure, have you thought about different ways to change that? Have you ever thought about making it mobile or making it bigger, making it life size? Are there any plans along those lines?
So far, we believe this is the right size and weight, because it is portable. The kids can actually take it with them everywhere. In terms of the screen, we wanted to limit the size because we really want to take the kids off of the displays. That's one of the biggest pain points of the parents. It is still there, so to create interaction. But eventually, maybe, I'm sure in the next 2 to 3 years, we are going to come up with different versions based on the feedback we get. But also, they can change the look. It has a hat. They can take it off, and it comes with different variations, as you can see behind me. And they can customize it, create their own unique robot as well.
Nice. I realized I said life size earlier too. I meant human sized. It is life size as it is, but still, looking at it right now,
it's really easy for them to hold it. It is small, and kids, they have small hands. So we thought about so many things. It's even drop tested, and
nice.
A lot of tests that we did. Yeah.
Well, for anybody who wants to get one, where should we send them to?
RoyBRobot.com. That's ROYBI robot.com on our website.
Well, Naz, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on the success.
Thank you.
And all the accolades that come with that, and excited to see where this goes going forward.
Thank you. We are definitely going to change and the education category and make history, as I always say.
Nice. Well, thank you for being here on
Thank
Digital
you.
Trends Live.
Thank you.
All right, so fascinating use case, right? Disrupting technology, changing the way education is happening. Certainly fascinating with that, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that going forward. All right, going to take a break here because we have Andy Boxall who's going to join us to keep us up to date on what's going on in mobile technology. And I know today there was a lot coming out from Oppo. I believe Andy was actually at one of the events, so he's going to be talking about that and more coming up. Stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Hello, this is Digital Trends Live. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're watching. That way you get notifications when we do go live, or you can follow along with all of the great conversations that we get to have. And we definitely keep you up to date on technology here at Digital Trends. And I know a lot of people today are talking about the new Oppo phones and devices that they came out with. Well, we were there. Andy Boxall was there to see all of this, and he's going to talk about that and some other things going on with mobile technology right now. Andy, thank you for joining us. So this Oppo event, what were we looking at today?
So I was at the virtual Oppo event in London this morning, my time, and they launched this, the Oppo Find X2 Pro, and they launched it alongside a more basic version, the Oppo Find X2, but it's the Pro version that we're really excited about. And there are three things that I absolutely love about this phone. And the first you can see here, this is leather, vegan leather, to be absolutely precise. And it's wonderful. We haven't seen a sort of leather-clad phone for a little while, and there's a very sort of subtle grain on this. Not only does it look really great, this is really bright orange in real life, and it feels great, but it doesn't attract fingerprints. Every phone we get these days is a fingerprinty nightmare, but not this one at all.
That's true. I didn't even think about that part. Yeah, so it's actually a faux leather, and that's part of it. That's not just an extra case. That's actually part of the phone.
No, that's actually part of the phone, and it has this gold chassis as well. And on the back down here, this is a gold Oppo logo. So it's quite flashy all around. Leather and gold, definitely an acquired taste. But believe me, it really does look cool when you see it in real life.
It looks pretty big. What size of screen is that?
It's 6.7 inch, so it's sort of in between the Galaxy S20 Plus and the Galaxy S20 Ultra. It's actually surprisingly compact. It's probably just my camera that makes it look massive. But it's really, really holdable. The aspect ratio of the screen makes it so that it fits in your hand really nicely. And the screen itself, although large, oh, it's lovely. They have packed in a ton of technology into this. It's quad HD. It has 120 hertz refresh, so it's super smooth when you scroll. And that's a big thing this year. Samsung's got it on the Galaxy S20 range, for example. So it really looks fantastic. A mini cinema in your pocket, they called it, with that great refresh rate, the high resolution. It's got Dolby Atmos, twin speakers, really nice. And as you can see, there's hardly any bezel, and there's a little punch hole camera there. Actually, really looks lovely.
That does look nice. I think that's pretty interesting, the 120 hertz refresh rate. Yeah, that everybody seems to be doing. I mean, it seems to be that's kind of the new standard for the very, very high-end premium phones. And I mean, once you experience that, you understand what it is. It's awesome. It's really great. So looking at it from there, though, you mentioned the cameras. So it still has the punch hole in the front, which is not uncommon. But how is the camera in that? Because that seems to be the other thing that the standard bearers for a lot of these phones.
Very much. And the camera on the back is the other standout feature of this phone. There are three camera lenses, two of 48 megapixels, and the third is a 13 megapixel periscope zoom. We're seeing periscope zooms on Huawei phones and the Galaxy S20 Ultra and previous Oppo phones. And it does up to 10 times hybrid zoom and then a 30 times digital zoom, which is quite insane. And it's really fantastic. I've been taking a few photos with this today, and although it's early software, the results are really impressive. Lots of bright colors, really well balanced, and lots of versatility. You can sort of zoom in and take a wide angle shot as well. Really cool.
What about on the video side? Does it take 4K?
It doesn't shoot. That's a very good question. I was going to correct myself there. It may shoot 4K. I haven't checked. But there is a really cool stabilization feature. And we've been shooting video today. And when you zoom in with the camera, it's all shaky because you're zoomed in. But then when you watch it on playback, there's no shake at all. They've really got some great camera sort of software trickery inside that keeps it super steady. And it makes these unusual features usable. Really, really important.
I love that. Yeah, that stabilization kind of feature, because I am not steady when I'm trying to film anything. So this is very beneficial to me. Is it 5G?
Yes, it is indeed 5G. And I've been giving it a try today with a 5G SIM inside. Speeds have been great in London, and it's using the Snapdragon, the Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 with Qualcomm's X55 5G modem inside. So it is bang up to date. I mean, it's got 12 gig of RAM, 512 gigabytes of storage space. It's pretty much got everything you could possibly want from a flagship phone today. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be Oppo's best phone to date. And for me, it's one of the standouts in 2020 so far.
Do you know where it's going to be available or how much it's going to be?
They've announced it for the UK and for Europe so far. I'd be surprised if it's going to come to the US, but you can always import these things. The price is £1,200, which is about $1,450 for the top range Find X2 Pro. And that puts it around the same price as the Galaxy S20 Ultra. So it's a high-end super phone, which you'd expect to pay that sort of money for today.
Well, speaking of the Galaxy, the S20 Ultra, I know that you've been trying out the S20 as well, and have had that one for a little while. What's your instinct so far on it?
So I have indeed got one of those here. You can't see it very well because it's black and very black. I think the phone is really, I really love it. It's big, it's bulky, but it's so well made. The screen is stunning, just as you'd expect from a Samsung phone. And the camera, I've got updated software on my version here. And the camera I've been shooting with today, there's definite improvements. I love the 8K video on here, 8K. If you've got an 8K TV, you need one of these. The thing for me, I used a grey version of this for a week, and then I got it replaced with a black version. And the black version is the one to buy. It's a shame there's not bright colours, but the black looks much better than the black battleship grey, which is a little bit dull.
Well, I love the fact that you guys have been trying this out too, and just to kind of get the actual honest opinion and feeling of those things. And 8K definitely being something that's completely different too than so many different versions.
Definitely.
I wanted to ask you too. You just at the beginning you talked about going to the virtual release, and is that, I'm assuming, in part because of MWC or something else that they would have had? How was the experience for the virtual conference, the virtual release, and what do you think that's going to portend for going forward?
Well, it's indeed because of the cancellation of MWC and also fears over sort of virus spread at the moment. A lot of companies are a bit up in the air with what they're doing with events. And one way that people are handling it is to do a virtual launch. And I sat in a cinema screening room in a very posh hotel in London and watched an online event, just like I was watching a movie, and then got hands-on time with the phone afterwards. It was actually a surprisingly pleasant experience. You still have that excitement of lots of people gathered together to launch a new device. You still get all the information. It's just not with someone standing on a stage. Instead, you're watching a live stream from somewhere else. It was fun, and I think that there's going to be a lot more of those this year.
Well, and speaking of that, and I think it's really fascinating. We talk about a lot here, just how companies are adapting to this and changing, with coronavirus and everything else. I know there's more phone releases to be coming too, and in particular, Nokia, they still have theirs to come. Can you tell us when that is and what we can expect?
Sure, yes. The details, I think, of Nokia, again, for their launch, it's going to be a virtual one. I don't think it's going to be hundreds of journalists all in one room. So their launch event is happening on March the 19th. And we're getting some hints, very exciting hints about what they're bringing. Yesterday, HMD Global, the company that has the license for making Nokia phones, announced a partnership with No Time to Die, the next 007 movie. And on March the 8th, they're going to show or give a sneak peek of one of their phones in a No Time to Die related trailer they're going to put online. And at least one of the characters in the film is going to be using a Nokia phone. We're expecting at least one mid-range priced 5G phone, which is very exciting. And hopefully a follow-up to the Nokia 9 PureView from last year, their high-end mega camera phone extravaganza. And that's going to be very exciting. So a mid-range 5G phone and a super camera phone.
I love the idea that there's a mid-range 5G phone, to finally start seeing that coming down, into some of these other ones. Well, Andy, as always, thank you so much for joining us to bring us up to date with that, and we appreciate everything that you're doing. And of course, you can read all of Andy's articles at digitaltrends.com. We keep you up to date with everything going on with mobile technology. And Andy, thanks a lot.
Pleasure, no problem at all. Thank you.
All right, so we have so much more coming up. I really want to take a look at that Oppo phone. I want to try that fake leather. But we've got more. So our next interview, I am really excited about this. So we have the professor from the Department of Music Production and Engineering for Berklee College of Music, Susan Rogers, who's going to join us, who is also an award winner, a multi-platinum earning record producer, who worked with Prince from 1983 to 87. She's going to talk about music and brainwaves. So much stuff to talk about. It's a lot coming up, so you're not going to want to miss this. Stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Hello, this is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Appreciate everybody watching whenever or wherever you are. So hit that subscribe button to get the notifications when we do have new content that goes up. And we get to have some great conversations here as part of this show. And I am really excited to just dive into this next one because it is fascinating. It's a kind of a dual combination of two things that I really love, which is science and music, combining into one. And to do so right now, we have a professor from the Department of Music Production and Engineering at Berklee College of Music. We have Susan Rogers here. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me, and you're welcome.
Your career is just really, really fascinating to talk about, and I know I said that a couple of times, but it just is. And I want to kind of talk about a little bit of your past, because you have worked with some. Not only are you obviously incredibly talented, but you've worked with some incredibly talented musicians and producers as well, including Prince. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I'm a really lucky person. And by the way, I might want to point out that the Prince fans around the world are legion, and you've misspelled my last name. Down there at the bottom, I'm looking at the text. It's Rogers with no D. So
we'll get that fixed right away.
Those Prince fans will notice that. Yes, I joined Prince in 1983. I was an audio technician working for Crosby, Stills and Nash at the time. And Prince was my favorite artist in the whole world. And the opportunity arose. Prince was just coming off the 1999 tour. He was looking for a full-time technician because he was going to be working in making the Purple Rain movie and album and everything. So I fit the bill. I was female. He liked working with women. I knew my stuff. I was a capable technician at that time. I knew his catalog. I was a huge Prince fan, had seen him live a number of times. So I got the gig and I moved out to Minnesota. I was with him Purple Rain, Around the World in a Day, Parade album, Sign of the Times, and all but one track on the Black album.
Wow, that's just incredible. I mean, that's an entire day-long conversation. I think we could have just about that. But you have so many incredible things to talk about, and I want to talk about going from this music career, from that side of things, into science, which seems like a really strange transition to make, not a common one. How did you decide to make this transition into psychology?
Same way that I got into the music business. You know, it's just a calling. You just feel it down inside. And I have students at Berkeley now, and I tell them that all the time, that the compass that you're looking for, the guide that you're looking for is inside you. It's where your mind goes when you daydream. When I was a kid, I never dreamt about being a performer or a songwriter. I dreamt about records. I was crazy about records. I just wanted to be where records were being made. And I was fortunate I was able to make that happen. But somewhere along the line in my late 30s, I started thinking about the natural world, and I just thought I would enjoy the life of a scientist, and that calling just kept getting louder and louder. So once I had a hit record with Bare Naked Ladies at the end of the last century, I was able to financially step away from the music business and enter college as a freshman, start all over, and get my PhD at McGill in Montreal, and have a second career.
Wow. I mean, that just takes a lot for somebody to switch gears and go there. I want to ask, on the psychology side of things, was there something about, music and being a musician, working with musicians, was there something interesting about that made you want to explore the psychology of it?
Absolutely not. It wasn't at all what I wanted to investigate. But because my science career was going to be short, I was convinced to abandon my original plan. I wanted to study consciousness in pigs.
Okay.
Pigs, because I'm very interested in intelligence, and of all the purportedly intelligent animals, the pig is the only one whose brain we don't study. So that was my grand plan. But having a short career in science, it was suggested to me that the smart move would be to study the emerging discipline of music perception and psychoacoustics and music cognition, which was just really getting a foothold and starting to be big. And that was good advice for me. It allowed me to combine what I knew of record making from a practical standpoint with a scientific education. So now I can look at the human activity and phenomena that are music, whether it's music perception or writing songs or dancing to music or getting emotions from music. I can look at that spectrum from two lenses, one from having been a record maker, and two from the lens of what we know in the field of neuroscience.
Which you really do kind of have the most perfect viewpoint of that, to see both sides of it and understand it from several different angles. There is something I wanted to ask you too, and I noticed this in some of your current research. You're researching music-induced visualizations. Can you tell us what that means?
Well, my research partner and writing partner, he and I are writing a book currently. We were interested in finding an answer to the question, what do most people visualize when they listen to music? And so he and I were having a business meeting, and it turned out I just assumed that everyone saw the same thing that I saw when I listened to music. Ever since I've been a little kid, when I listen to music, I picture in my mind's eye the band playing. I automatically go there. So it turns out my writing partner said, well, no, I don't see that at all. I see abstract shapes and colors. And we're both looking at each other going, God, that's really weird. So we started asking around. I asked students and faculty at Berkeley, and he started asking his colleagues at Harvard. And we found out there's a great variety of visualization types out there in the world. So now we're doing a research study on it, and our preliminary data has been really, really fun to look at. It turns out that neither my visualization habit nor my partner's visualization habit, neither one of those are the most common. So we've got this research paper in the works right now, and it's really fun. What we're interested in is when people select their favorite music and they're listening to music just for recreation, not to learn chords or anything like that, but just for recreation, what sort of daydreams do you have? And what do you see?
Wow.
When
now I'm
you're
trying
in
to
that
think about it
place?
myself. I'm like, what do I picture when
Tell
I'm...
me, what's yours?
Yeah,
What's yours?
it just kind of depends on what it is. If it's something that I'm familiar with, I'll think of where I was when I heard it last. Like that's where I'll go. generally speaking. Now I'm thinking about that way too much. I'm going to be thinking about that all day. Well, for people who want to follow along with your studies and what you're doing and all this fascinating work, is there anywhere that I could send them to read more about it, or just kind of think about it and explore it on their own?
We're in the early stages of it right now. I've
Okay.
got a talk, as you know, I've got a talk coming up in a couple of weeks at South by Southwest, and I'll mention that, but mostly I'm talking about music psychology for record producers. My partner and we do have a publishing deal, so there will be a book out that discusses that, and our research paper, we're hoping for at some point later this year, our research will be published.
Well, Susan, I cannot wait to read that and see what your findings are from this. That's just such an incredible thing to study that clearly not a lot of us have ever thought about. And thank you so much, for spending some time here on the show with us and joining us to talk about this. And hopefully, we'll get to talk to you some more down the line too about some of these great projects. Thanks for being here on Digital Trends Live.
Thank you very much. Nice talking with you.
Yeah. All right, that was great. That's really interesting. Now I can't stop thinking about that. But I know we need to get to a break. So we've got Ken Young coming up. We're going to do that right now. So let's take a break, come right back with Digital Trends Live and Ken Young for Tech Briefs. This is Digital Trends Live, and it is Friday, which means it's time for another edition of Tech Briefs. I'm Greg Nibbler, of course, always joined by Ken Young, the technology editor for Flipboard, to bring you up to date as quick as possible on everything that's happened here in this last week. And there's a lot. I think, well, number one, hello, Ken.
Hey, Greg. Nice to see you again.
And as it was noted off air, you are not quarantined. You are still in your office. So that is good. The coronavirus hasn't gotten you yet, but it has taken down a number of conventions. And it just every day there's more and more. Just kind of recap some of them for this week. Google I/O canceled. GDC basically canceled. There's a bunch of other ones that are even smaller ones that are canceled. I mean, it's some that we already knew from last week. This week, that's constantly happening. And now South by Southwest in danger, not canceled as of right now, but a lot of companies pulling out from it.
Right. And look, I think we joke that, I'm not quarantined, but realistically, this is something that's having a major impact on everybody. And of course, since we're talking just tech, I mean, specifically in Silicon Valley, this is having a bit of an impact. I mean, certainly we've had cases in the Santa Clara County. There's also been in San Francisco. There's been a confirmed case as well. So there's been a lot of people impacted by this. Companies are taking steps to try and protect their workers, especially those in Seattle, which has been the hardest hit area so far in the country, with I believe dozens of cases reported, if not more. And companies such as Salesforce, Google, Facebook, Twitter, are all instructing their employees to work from home until a certain period of time, until they can figure out, when is it all clear to come back to the office. So, I mean, every company at this point needs to have that type of protocol in place. What happens, should things change for the worse. But you're starting to see a lot of these companies start to do more remote working. And I mean, some companies are able to adapt to that. But of course, what happens to those that are hourly workers, such as those in the janitorial or security? Some companies, such as Google, say that they will continue to pay full wages to these contract workers, to these hourly workers, which is a good thing. But this is having an impact also on events. So, such as we mentioned GDC, Google I/O, Google's Cloud Next conference has been canceled. SaaStr has also been canceled. The Geneva Auto Show has also been canceled.
Right.
South by Southwest is still tentatively being held. Whether or not that's actually going to be ultimately canceled remains to be seen. They've been holding press conferences saying they're making precautions such as, oh, we're going to allow distance safety or some particular form, which is like, how crowded it's going to be.
Yeah.
But people are withdrawing, including major companies.
Yeah, I mean, Apple, Facebook, Twitter, just Intel. I mean, so many different ones that have backed out of it so far. But if it continues forward, it'll be one of the biggest ones that has kept going, despite everything and the threats that are going on with coronavirus. So we'll have to see where it goes. But yeah, it's definitely having an effect on so many different facets of our lives. Clearly we're just focusing on the tech side of it for that end, but a lot of ramifications for everybody. And it'll be interesting to see how these things all shake out going forward. Going on from that, let's talk about something else. There was an Apple settlement this week for $500 million. Now, if you remember a couple of years ago, and probably a lot of us do, especially if you're an iPhone user, there were all these issues over people talking about how their iPhones were going a lot slower, working a lot slower, seemed throttled if they were older. And it turns out Apple was throttling them. Now, they were doing it in part because of some of the new software and in coordination with the batteries of those older phones, it would cause them to possibly crash. That's why they said they were throttling it. But they didn't tell anybody they were doing that. They just went and did it. And they didn't give like a notification until it had already come out. And then by then, everybody was pretty upset about it, and kind of rightfully so, because it confirmed all of our worst fears about phones is that the companies are throttling them. And they were throttling them. So now this settlement is $500 million that potentially a lot of people could get paid, maybe up to $25 most likely. But I think it's interesting that they did have to come out and do this. $500 million isn't a ton for Apple, really, realistically, but it does give a little bit of a penalty for that. Maybe this will curb other companies from doing this going forward.
I think I don't necessarily know if it's going to curb anything. I mean, it's like, again, it's $500 million to Apple. I mean, look at what their revenue was in the last quarter, and it's like, really, they can make it up. Of course, in a normal quarter, they could easily make up that cost. And for $25, I mean, what are you gonna do with that? Are you going to basically go and buy an accessory for that? I was like, now I can buy a case for my new iPhone, But look, I think seriously that people were wondering is like, look, you're slowing my battery's getting throttled. What's going on? Is this just a clever ploy by Apple to renew every 2? I mean, we all know, like we kind of jokingly say that all of our devices have a 2-year shelf life. Whether it's your Fitbit, whether your Apple Watch, your phone, or your computer. It's like, oh, okay, time for upgrade and get a new device every 2 years. And was this all part of the manufacturer spec? And realistically, it was, but whether whose rationale you believe is up to you. I think Apple admitted in 2018 saying, look, we did it, our bad, but this is not because of, we want you to upgrade. We need, it's all a performance issue and everything like that. And it's like, then if you're a conspiracy buff, you kind of want to think like, really, are you sure? Because, now you're saying in a quarterly earnings saying most people aren't renewing, and therefore that's why iPhone sales are down. Look, who knows? That's all conspiracy.
Right.
Realistically, Apple's been caught. They've admitted defeat, or they admitted guilt. So therefore now, $500 million is going out. $9 million, I believe, of that is going to attorney fees. Yay, attorneys. $25 is going to those impacted, those with an iPhone 6, a 5 and 6, or 6 and 7, and an SE. So have fun with your $25.
Right. Yeah, there's your $25 for it. Yep, we were throttling your phones. All your worst fears were true when it comes to that. Well, that's part of that settlement. Just a couple other things here that we want to get to. Another one being SpaceX. Another big announcement from them this week in this burgeoning field of space tourism, which is about ready to take off. And that's what we're talking about with this one. It's a partnership actually with Axiom Space. So Axiom's done some space tourism work before, but now they've partnered with SpaceX to send send 4 private astronauts up to the International Space Station. And it's kind of a big, when this does happen, it'll be kind of a watershed moment because it's going to be a private space company taking up private astronauts to the International Space Station. So no national space programs being involved in it. And once this gets going, it's kind of the start of a whole series of planned space tourism events, but definitely an interesting one with this partnership between these two.
Right, and if you look at all this private space companies, realistically, like SpaceX is going to dominate because they have, they're going to have about 10 passengers, tourists that they're going to be out in space, well beyond Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin, and they're going to be sending them further. I mean, look, in the past we've talked about they're going to send the fashion billionaire out to the moon and back. Now they're going to send people. Then they're going to send 3 additional tourists, or 3 or 4 additional tourists out into space at a higher altitude than anybody's ever been. And now they're going to send it to 3 tourists to the International Space Station for 10 days. This is actually a very monumentous occasion when if this actually happens. But realistically, let's not kid ourselves that this is not going to usher in like, hey, Greg, you and I, let's do tech briefs from space and like hop on the next flight. Because realistically, this is not going to be cheap. I mean, they're looking at $55 million per ticket at least. And of course, they're saying this could be like $10 to $20 million cheaper.
Right.
So, okay, you know, so
it's a discount. Don't undervalue us, Ken. Don't undervalue the value of tech briefs. I mean, I think clearly if SpaceX knows what they're doing, they want tech briefs from space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm on board.
I don't know. I mean, it's like, but seriously though, it'll be a while before we actually start to see more mainstream consumers start to say, all right, you know what? We can't get away. I don't want to go to Tahoe. I want to go to the moon.
It's very, very rich people are going to be doing this to start off with. But it's got to start somewhere, and it's always them that are going to get it. I know we need to get to a break, but before we do that, I do want to talk really quick just about the launch of a new streaming platform, and that is Flipboard TV. Ken, tell us about this.
So Flipboard TV, we debuted it today. It was actually it was announced at Samsung Unpacked but last month, and so it's an exclusive for the Samsung Galaxy S20. And really, what this is it's bringing. If you're accustomed to using Flipboard, this is actually bringing the curation and the capabilities and discoverability of Flipboard. Not just for articles, but specifically into videos. And so this is our ad-free premium offering. So for $2.99 a month on the S20, you'll be able to view videos from dozens of media outlets, including Digital Trends, Hearst, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, Dow Jones, Bustle, Inverse, a whole bunch of these publications. And it's all curated just for you. So look, if you want to know everything around food, around tech, around business, around general news and politics, but from a video format, this is actually what's going to be good. And everyone's going onto these sites and they're looking for video content, and it's getting mixed up. There's a lot of noise. What we're doing is we're taking all the video out, and we're kind of making it easier for you to digest and look at all the different videos around particular topics. We have 16 categories currently available, and we're adding more publishers into this platform as it moves on. So if you have a Samsung Galaxy S20, whether it's the any of the versions of the S20, go ahead and try out the Flipboard TV experience. It's available. You can access it not only through Flipboard's app on Android, but also through Samsung Daily Card. And then let us know how it feels. It's $2.99 a month. It's the first 3 months are free, and and we're very interested to hear what your experience is and move forward from there.
Well, Ken, thank you so much for talking about that. Flipboard TV, again, it looks awesome, and we're happy to be a part of it as well, and always happy to have you here for Tech Briefs. I do think maybe they should have experimented with the Ken Plus side of things. Maybe that can be a channel on Flipboard TV, but we'll have to see.
Greg, that's all under embargo.
I'm sorry, I just broke that.
We're going worldwide here. It's going to be on Disney Plus,
my bad.
Hulu Plus, Digital Plens Plus, Quibi Plus.
I'll get that deleted out of the archives. Ken, thank you so much.
Thanks, appreciate it.
All right, I know we need to get to a break, but again, that's Tech Brief, so hit subscribe to the podcast wherever you get those. We're going out right now. We're going to come back. We've got Winnie Sun talking about investing during this coronavirus issue that's going on, so that's going to happen next. So I'm back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. We like to keep you up to date on everything that is going on in the world of technology, but certainly there is nothing more prevalent right now than the coronavirus and how it is affecting all of us in a myriad of different ways. But right now, let's talk about the financial side of things. To do so, of course, we have Winnie Sun back here on the show. Thank you so much for being here, Winnie.
Thank you so much for having me, Greg. How you doing?
Doing good. We've heard a lot of different stories about the coronavirus and about the stock market and about how this is changing financial things. You are our expert. Please tell us, how is this affecting things?
This is affecting so much. So many of us are looking at our 401k statements and are like, oh my goodness, this is so crazy. Yesterday, the market was down 970 points. It's like a complete roller coaster. And so the first things first, you want to take a look at your statements and not panic. Because the good news is when this happens, and it has happened in the past, maybe not exactly the coronavirus, but natural disasters have happened, it goes down, but it always comes back up. So unless your time horizon is short and you need your money literally this year, let's say you're retiring this year, or you're hearing grumblings of layoffs at work, I would say right now, hold tight. But if you are panicked, seek out advice from an expert.
So looking at it from that standpoint with, the way things are changing, is this a good time that people should be investing? Or is this a time where you just kind of let it ride? I mean, I guess talk to us about that side of things.
Yeah, absolutely, Greg. If you're in a situation like yourself, you've got plenty of years before retirement. Maybe you have young children at home that you are thinking, I really should start saving for their college savings. This actually could give you a great opportunity to do that because their time horizon's long. As long as the risk tolerance is there, then it does make sense to think about that. For example, if you're saving for retirement, you got plenty of years ahead of you, it doesn't hurt for you to maybe double up on your contributions right now. If you can afford to do so, double up now. And when the coronavirus is behind us, you can then lower those contributions later on. And same with like right now, I have 3 young kids at home. I am definitely adding to their college savings funds right now. And that's the best time to do it because things are cheap, right? If you went into a store and everything was 70% off, how much would you buy? So you got to think about that way. If there's good quality, focus on diversification, but don't panic. So
don't panic, even though it's very much so much in the news. It's probably hard for a lot of people not to panic right now. Looking at it from some other standpoints too, what do you think, like going forward? I guess what other kinds of advice do you have? Do you think people should know while we're going through this?
Well, I would say right now, this is not a short-term thing. This is a real thing. If you're out there and you're like thinking, should I be stocking up on water? Should I be stocking on things like that? Actually, you should, right? So prepping is a good thing. So I'm calling it the coronavirus budget. If you didn't have an emergency fund, this could play havoc into your budget. But fortunately, I think hopefully many of you had sort of like some savings in your bank account so that you can sort of prepare. Don't go overboard, but make sure you have what you need for you and your family for at least 2 to 3 weeks. And buy the things that you absolutely need. It does make sense. Talk to your employer right now and say, you know what, if it gets bad, can I work from home? Is this going to affect my work and my job? You want to have these open discussions. If you're renting your apartment and you're worried about making rent, talk to your landlord right now. Talk to your credit cards. If you feel like you're going to suffer financial consequences because you can't work, these are the conversations that you want to have right now.
What do you think is going to be the impact with some of these big businesses and the way that they're handling things? Because you see all the conventions getting canceled. A lot of them are sending their workers home. Amazon and Facebook in Seattle have sent, I think, encouraged pretty much everybody to work from remotely if they can. What kind of a financial impact is that going to have going forward?
Well, it's going to have a big impact, at least temporarily anyways, because if you can't, businesses are financial centers, as you will. You got to think about it that way. So if they're not selling things, if they're not getting new subscribers, they're not having people go to conferences, they can't pay their speakers, but also it could come and relate to your income, your paycheck. They might need to make cuts. So these are all things that, will come into play. So you want to prepare for that. In fact, I was talking to my friends. I'm an Adobe insider. And so there's this big conference, Adobe Summit, which got canceled, right? And so a lot of the amazing people on Adobe, a lot of them are professional speakers. No conferences, no speaking. That will definitely impact your budget. So times like this, it's a good idea. I mean, we're not really going out right now, but think of things where you can decrease your spending. So one thing I would encourage you to do, if you have gym membership right now, I would reach out to your gym and see if you can put it on a freeze. If you have the movie pass, same thing, because right now it's probably safer for you to work out at home and probably cleaner. So think of ways to really tighten up your budget. It's not going to be forever. For the next few months, let's see how this unfolds. But right now it pays to be conservative because a lot of companies are suffering. We know all the big companies are saying that earnings aren't going to come in as strongly this quarter for sure.
Yeah, definitely been something that they've all been talking about. I think that's interesting looking at the convention side. I didn't even think about the speakers, and all of that without those things going on. Well, hopefully.
I lost 3 keynotes this year already.
Oh, so. Man. Wow. So sorry. Yeah, that's just crazy how it's all shaking out. But I know it's rapidly evolving. But thank you so much for the advice, too, on how we can actually handle this and what we should be doing and not completely panicking, but just be prepared, is I think a good mantra on that. Well, thank you so much for being here. We'll definitely have to have you back on soon. Winnie, thank you.
We'll love to be here. Thank you, Greg.
All right, so some great advice right there. I'm going to take some of that advice that she just gave and make sure that I'm handling all of that as well. So thank you very much for joining us here for that. And thank you to everybody who's watching live. I know we need to get to a break. We've got Rick Marshall joining us for another edition of Between the Streams, where we're going to talk about some movies and entertainment news, including some James Bond changes and some Indiana Jones changes. And all that's coming up next. So stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and it's now time for Between the Streams, where we catch you up to date on some of the big stories in entertainment that are happening right now with movies, with television shows, some developments. And to do so, we're joined by Rick Marshall. Hello, Rick.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing well. A lot to get to here going through this. And I think to start off, I kind of want to get your opinion on this. When it comes to, I mean, it's inevitable. We have to talk about the coronavirus and just how it's had an effect on the entertainment industry. It's an effect on everything. But looking at it from the entertainment side, certainly it's been a big hit because people aren't going out to as many movies. But this development with James Bond, seems pretty unprecedented to me that something like this would get delayed. And that's what happened. So No Time to Die is being pushed back. How many months is it?
7 months. And a story actually just came out today that it looks like the studio is going to lose like some 30-40 million likely because of this. It's going to cost them massive amounts of money to push this back. But in the long run, they're hoping that they can make up for it by, not putting it out at a time when no one wants to get together, in large groups.
Well, and that's the thing too. When you look at this, talking about that delay on there, that's just so big with something like this, with a huge movie and a huge marketing push. And it'll be interesting to see how this affects other movies coming forward as well. So
they've had a bunch of movies actually too. Mission Impossible was supposed to be filming out there in Italy, and they've had to postpone that. There's been a bunch of big movies that have either had to postpone production, postpone releases, postpone screenings, even press screenings of them. Basically, movie industry is getting rocked by this.
Well, we'll see how that affects other things. So again, that's James Bond, the No Time to Die being delayed. So I expect maybe more of that. Looking forward to something else here that we got this week. We did get to see some more of the Batman as they're slowly revealing some more images and more things that are coming out. We got to see the more of the vehicles, the Batmobile and the Batcycle, and we got a little bit of the suit. What do you think about this so far?
I love it, actually. I'm a huge fan of this take. I love Matt Reeves to begin with. The director is fantastic, but everything so far that I've seen has really won me over to this. And it's sort of bringing me back and reminding me why I liked the Batman movies, in the Zack Snyder sort of Batman v Superman, area of that entire franchise. I love the look, the gritty sort of, he's just learning Batman. He's putting together, like, the pieces of his costume look like they're sort of, I don't know, here's a part from a football, like, pads, and here's, like, some hockey pads, and here's just some other stuff I could find. I don't know, I bought, like, I went down to the Army-Navy store and bought something and attached it to the outfit. I kind of love that look.
Right.
The car is a souped-up muscle car.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks way more tangible, and I think it's definitely going for that idea that he's more detective, harnessing the detective side of things. It does seem to have that feel. The more I see of it, the more I'm liking it, and the more I'm liking Robert Pattinson as Batman, at least as far as the look so far. It's looking like it's gonna be good.
I'm a big fan of Pattinson in this role too, and I can't say that I was a big fan of Pattinson prior to this. Like I wasn't a huge Robert Pattinson fan, but I like him in this role. When it was first announced, my initial response was not super positive, but then I thought about it for a little while, and I'm like, actually, this makes a lot of sense. I can totally see him doing this and doing a really good job with it.
Yeah, and so definitely exciting on that. We've got more at digitaltrends.com. You can go there and take a look at these pictures and images. Bouncing from there, let's go on to Netflix, and everybody wants to have their original content, but everybody's going back to source material for so many things. And Netflix has a deal with the Roald Dahl estate to make more things in his worlds, including Willy Wonka. And now being announced that Taika Waititi is directing two different Willy Wonka and the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory series for Netflix. One of them focusing on the Oompa Loompas.
Yeah, that's so bizarre, but
weird. Connected
with Taika Waititi, it's kind of perfect. Like, it kind of makes a whole lot of sense if you know his sensibilities and his tone and what he goes for. It actually, with any other writer or director, you'd be kind of like, I don't know if this is going to work out. But with him, it's like, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. With him, it makes sense. Anybody else, I don't know. But it's the backstory of I don't know if it's the backstory, origin story of the Oompa Loompas or whatever's going to go on with that.
Do they need an origin story? I don't.
Doesn't everything need an origin story now?
I'm on board with it. I don't know. He's directing, he's writing, directing, and producing it. I'm on board with it, whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is, definitely. So he's got that one, and then another one that's going to focus on some of the other characters from there as well. So we'll have to see how they shake out. But if
we
it's
finally get that Violet Beauregard, series that we really wanted.
Everybody's been clamoring for it. So that's something to look forward to there with Netflix. Just two more quick things. One, Indiana Jones 5 update. In case you forgot, that is happening. Indiana Jones 5. Steven Spielberg, though, not going to direct it.
Yeah, first film in the entire franchise he won't direct. I think it was kind of a smart move given how Kingdom of the Crystal Skull wasn't a huge hit, and he stepped down, sort of indicating that maybe it's time for somebody else to take over and direct this. And right now the rumors are saying that James Mangold will be the director. He's the guy who did Logan, and I think that's a really smart choice. He does really good with that sort of westerny type vibe, and I think that maybe return to that sort of archaeologist swashbuckler western type thing could be a good thing for the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, and certainly you got to do something. I mean, by the time this thing is done, Harrison Ford's going to be what, 79, 80? I don't even know. So it'll be interesting. It'll be him racing everybody in a rascal or something like that at that point.
Yeah, he's gonna be the grouchiest Indiana Jones ever.
Seriously. So Indiana Jones 5, still looking forward to that. And then the last thing I want to bring up, and this is one for myself that's near and dear to my heart, and is that Amazon Prime is bringing back Kids in the Hall, the seminal, the classic, the amazing sketch comedy show from Canada, Kids in the Hall. Rick, tell me about your favorite Kids in the Hall episode.
Well, here's my big confession. I can't on-air confession. I have never actually watched The Kids in the Hall.
Oh.
I know. I get this a lot. It's this massive void in my television watching experience. I ended up having to look it up when we were talking about this earlier to find out when it even aired, that I somehow missed it. And I think it was just because it was early 90s, I don't know, high school era for me. I don't think I even had cable television at home growing up like it when I was in high school. So that's my excuse, and I'm going to stick to it. I'm sorry. That's the best I got.
The only reason I saw it was because it was syndicated and at one point, and it was on like late night, and definitely way after it originally aired. But in college, I watched almost all of this. It's just strange. I mean, the whole series is weird. It's SNL on acid, pretty much. So that's kind of what you're getting with this. But it's hilarious, and they brought back all 5 of the original members, and Lorne Michaels back producing it. Kids in the Hall, it's amazing. So I'm excited for that one.
I've heard great things.
Yeah, and maybe they'll bring back all the past catalog to Amazon too. That would be really cool. But yeah,
I can catch up.
Full new season that's going to be coming out with that. Well, Rick, thank you so much for joining us, and of course, all of your articles and all of your write-ups are there at Digital Trends. We've got so much for people to catch up on. Always appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on. I love this.
All right, there we go. Rick Marshall. I cannot believe he didn't watch Kids in the Hall, but nonetheless, there's other people out there too, so catch up on that. All right, we want to thank everybody who joins us here on Digital Trends Live. I know I need to wrap up the show, but coming up next week, we'll be going live on location with Oros Outwear with a liquid nitrogen test, closing down Riley Wynn. And they're launching a new Kickstarter campaign, and Riley will be putting their new clothing to the test. And speaking of crowdfunding, Drew Prindle will be on for another awesome tech you can't buy yet, rounding up all of our favorite tech-ish products on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And that is just part of what's coming up next week. Of course, we'll keep you up to date on everything going on in technology. Always follow along at digitaltrends.com. Have a great weekend for Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. I'll see you right back here next week.